My word, what had I done? She moaned and groaned and shouted out, step on the other one. Well, reader, I can tell no more about what occurred that day. Suffice to say, my dark brown hair, no, it's ginger actually, turned 50 shades of grey. Black and blue battered too, with wanton wild perversion. We decided that a night of sin was scarce for such exertion. Thank heaven she has burned the book, and peace it reigns like before. She's head to toe in flannelette and back to back with snore. It was in Edinburgh that Burns eventually rose to fame, fast becoming known in the fashionable and literary circles of the city. Here Rabbie could hobnob with the gentry and mix with all sorts of particular lawyers, lords, and those from his own artistic trade. People such as John Logan, who was a famous sermon writer at the time, and Jane Elliott, the author of The Flowers of the Forest, which is a very famous pipe tune that's played when they play at funerals. Burns was a feared man at this stage in his life, as no sooner as someone offended him than he would put pen to paper, or whatever was around at that time, and write the feelings of the subject or incident. One such incident happened when Burns, after a heavy bout of drinking, had a rather nasty experience with a young lady of the night, more commonly known in Scotland as a hula. Burns approached the young lady and said, "It's rather late for a girl of your years to be out alone." The young lady replied that this was normal as she was a working girl. "And what kind of work do you do?" inquired Burns. "I work for myself," she replied. "Oh, that's very good," replied Burns. "And is business good for you?" "Bloody great," she replied. "In fact, with another pair of legs are open in Dundee." This experience actually inspired him to write the following, and it will come as no surprise that I failed to find this in Burns's complete works. A wandering lass I met one night whilst roaming through the town. I'd just come out the boozer and the heat was spinning round. I staggered up the stairs to her to ask her, "What's your price? For 12 bright shiny pennies you can have me twice." She took me into her wee room where we had a jug of ale, and when she whipped her plodder off, it turned me off the pale. To bed we went with fearsome haste to do the lustful deed, but Drewers that's what you get for drinking. But Brewers troop had struck again, so she slapped me on the heat. For hours I tried to get it up, but the beastie just stayed soft, so there I went to sleep, because her snoring put me off. I woke up in the morning to see her ugly face. I sought like mad to find my breeks and leave that awful place. And just as I was creeping out, she woke and said to me, "Your rebate's on the sideboard, because you were nae good to me." Rabbie Burns left Edinburgh in February 1788, and for a short time resided in Glasgow, before finally returning to Ayrshire, when he again took up his relationship with Jean Armour. They married on the 5th of August 1788, by which time they had settled at a farm in Ellisland near Dumfries. On the first night of marriage, Rabbie was laying down some ground rules. "Wife," says Burns, "I'll be home when I want, if I want, and whatever time I want. I'll go boozing when I want, and visit the club with my cronies when I want, and I don't want any trouble for you. I also want a decent meal on the table every night. Those are my rules. What sayest thou?" Jean replied, "Fine with me, but understand this, Rabbie Burns. There will be wild sex here in this house, every night, 7 o'clock sharp, with or without you." 1891, they gave up the farm and moved into the town of Dumfries itself. Robbie Burns packed a great deal into a very short life, and his influence can be seen not only in his native land, but worldwide. Burns clubs have been established worldwide, the first being in 1801 in Greenock by merchants born in Ayrshire, some of whom had actually known Robbie Burns. His birthplace is now a public museum known as Burns Cottage. Monuments and statues have been erected around the world. Towns have been named after him, such as Burns, New York, Burns, Oregon, with streets in the suburb of Somerville, Dumfries, bearing the names relating to Burns' connotations. A replica cottage of his birthplace stands in Atlanta, Georgia. John Steinbeck, in his title of his 1937 novel of Mice and Men, was taken from a line into a mouse. The Soviet Union was the first country in the world to honour Burns with a commemorative stamp in 1956. It took the Royal Mail until 1966 to accord him the same honour. Again in Russia, he became the people's poet, with his works becoming a symbol for the ordinary Russian. In 1924, the Russian translation of his works sold over 600,000 copies. If you're ever lucky enough to have a £5 note, I'm no, because I'm married to Anne. His picture is on the reverse of that note, issued by the Clydesdale Bank, and in September 2007, a Robert Burns statue is portrayed on the reverse side of that issued by the Bank of Scotland. The list of influences is endless, and in this day of the World Wide Web, we are able to see them and to read his great works with relative ease, understanding them a different matter. Burns suppers are more widely observed than that of the National Day, being St Andrew's Day. On the morning of 21st of July 1796, Robbie Burns died in Dumfries at the age of 37 years. The funeral took place on Monday, 25th of July 1796, the day his son William Maxwell was born. As the funeral procession finally fell silent, a voice was heard to say, "And where will be our poet new?" Over 250 years later, the question remains unanswered. His final resting place is in the Burns Mausoleum at St Michael's Churchyard in Dumfries, with Jean Armour being laid beside him in 1834. Before I close, I'd like to recite one final poem. Sitting in the house at night, I wrote this little speech. I tried so hard to find the words, but they were out of reach. Writing till the wee small hours, at times without a break. There is one thing for certain, a poet I will never make. For days I toil to find a way to make these wee lines rhyme. I'll need to write much faster because I'm running out of time. Around this time in January, there are gatherings throughout the land, for at this time, some years ago, was born a famous man. This man to whom we toast tonight, his memory and his fame, was born in Bonnie Ayrshire, Robbie Burns, that is his name. He loved old Bonnie Scotland and travel it he would, to write his songs and poems as only Robbie could. Now it's time for me to go. I think it's only right to leave you all with 4 small words. It's Robbie's night tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you to rise in our toast to the greatest Scot in all time, the immortal memory of Robbie Burns.
Robbie Burns.
I've never heard you swear before.
You did then.
That's a fraction of the way through.